Hello everybody. In this presentation I'm going to be talking about the Mexican-American migration to assimilation. Since the American and Mexican War and the establishment of the Treaty of Guadalupe, those living in the states that were acquired by the United States had to adapt to the new country. They faced language barriers and cultural differences. They had to learn that new language in order to protect their rights, their property, and in order to communicate with those around them. As a result, over time, some of the cultural traditions passed down to children of Mexican Americans have faded due to them navigating their U.S. identity, as well as a lot of the language has not been passed down over time from generation to generation just because it has not been practiced as often. And I wanted to share a video from the Selena movie regarding this, not being Mexican enough and not being American enough whenever you think of Mexican Americans, especially because of their struggling identity.
Yeah.
Hello, we're Mexican.
No, we are Mexican American, and they don't like Mexican
That's
American.
all the same one,
and they can be
Assange.
mean, and they can tear us apart over there.
Oh,
Selena's
right.
Spanish is.
What about my Spanish? I've been singing in Spanish for 10 years. It's perfect.
Singing, yes, but when you speak it a little funny. And down there, you gotta speak perfectly, or the press will eat you up and spit you out alive. I've seen them do it.
Overreacting as usual.
Dad, the music will speak for itself, Dad.
Listen, being Mexican American is tough. Anglos jump all over you if you don't speak English perfectly. Mexicans jump all over you if you don't speak Spanish perfectly. We gotta be twice as perfect as anybody else. Our family has been here for centuries, and yet they treat us as if we just swam across the Rio Grande. Anglo food is too bland, and yet when we go to Mexico, we get the runs. Now that, to me, is embarrassing.
Dad!
Japanese Americans, Italian Americans, German Americans, their homeland is on the other side of the ocean. Ours is right next door, right over there. And we gotta prove to the Mexicans how Mexican we are, and we gotta prove to the Americans how American we are. We gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans, both at the same time. It's exhausting.
Some of the obstacles that they changed was regarding the broken promises that the United States had after the Treaty of Guadalupe and the Mexican-American War. They did not fully uphold the promises regarding the civil rights for the Mexican Americans who lived in the states acquired after the war. And as a result, a lot of the Mexican Americans in the Southwest lost their land due to legal battles. A lot of them were being served legal notices to go to pay for property taxes or any legal battle that they had. And because of the language barrier, they were not showing up in court, or they just did not understand what was going on. So a lot of them lost their homes this way. Another big obstacle that Mexican Americans had to face was wealth gaps due to lower wages in their journey to assimilation. A lot of what we see in the beginning is farm workers having very low wages. They had to fight and go on strike on various occasions to obtain fair wages and to get union to represent them. And we will learn that it happened during the Bracero program and the civil rights Chicano movement. In addition, they also faced challenges in the education system. These challenges included language barriers, of course, and limited access to resources. And also, their community and their culture was not being represented. So that was another big thing that was fought for during the Chicano movement. And overall, after fighting in the war and serving this country, Mexican Americans still faced a lot of discrimination, oppression, and racism, and it still happens to this day. Now let's talk about some public policies that were created to exclude Mexican Americans. The first one that we're going to talk about is Operation Wetback. And this happened as a result of the major migration that happened right after the Bracero program. And after the Mexican Revolution, there was a lot of migration into the U.S. So in order to control that, Operation Wetback began. And during this operation, raids on Mexican American homes and businesses were common, and authorities often ignored the civil rights of Mexican Americans, as we talked about already, and the obstacles that they faced during migration to assimilation. Another policy created was the California Proposition 187 in 1999. And this proposition sought to deny public services, including education and healthcare, to undocumented immigrants. And this reflected and reinforced the anti immigrant sentiment that a lot of people had in the U.S. at the time. A more recent policy that was created to exclude Mexican Americans was the zero tolerance policy. And under the zero tolerance policy, the Department of Justice prosecuted all adult aliens that they apprehended, and with no exceptions of asylum seekers or those with minor children. As a result of this, for the 6 weeks that the policy was active, the Department of Homeland Security separated 2,860 children from their families or parents. Now let's talk about public policies created to include / mobilize Mexican Americans. The Bracero program was a program where it allowed Mexican Americans to cross the border legally to work and obtain wages. And this was a very big incentive for a lot of Mexican Americans because the wages in Mexico were not what they were going to be in the States. Something else that was to include and mobilize Mexican Americans was the Chicano movement for civil rights. And key things that we see here is Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta fought an enormous amount for civil rights for those Mexican Americans who were working, especially farm workers. Their main priority was to get them unionized and get them to have fair wages. Another key aspect of the Chicano movement for civil rights was the fight for registration to vote, as well as education equality. And as a result of the Chicano movement, we see the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited discrimination in the United States. Now let's talk about some Mexican American labor roles and contributions. Mexican Americans have contributed largely to the economy through their big roles in the agricultural industries, construction industries, and service industries in the United States. They have also made some lasting contributions in the food, music, and art industries. One of the examples is the lasting legacy that Selena Quintanilla created in the Tejano music. We also see contributions in the food industry with tacos, guacamoles, burrito, and tamales becoming so popularized in restaurants. And also a lot of art contribution, a lot of murals and mural art. One of the big artists that we also see is Diego Rivera. And overall, there has been a lot of lasting contributions that Mexican Americans have had over the years in the United States, especially from those who came here looking for a better life and have now had second and third generation children who have passed down their traditions from generation to generation.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. What you need. We're broken, it's tragic. We're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious